Life's like a road that you travel along. There's one day here and the next day gone. The verdict is out. Drinking eggnog in the holiday season, out of the holiday season, you're fine. Innocent. Wow. Oh my gosh, we're going to have to go tell the Supreme Court this. I'm sure they know. Now, playing Christmas music early, I'm not a big advocate of it, just thematically as a composer. But I'm not, if I hear Silent Night, before Thanksgiving, but before the day after Thanksgiving, I'm not going to be mad. It's fine. It's a good song. I'm actually, ironically, I think what should happen is people, stores like Target should play Christmas music, like play one song in May. Get the higher ups to get Frosty the Snowman, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and Silent Night playing in May, but only one time each and like a week separate. So there are people that shop one day a week, for their groceries. So you could play it on like a Monday. Start with Silent Night in May. And then 7 days later in May, play Rudolph and then Frosty 7 days later. I would walk up to HR and I'd be like, hey, whoever decided on this, please tell higher ups to give them a raise. I think that'd be hilarious. I think that'd be a good, a good mix up. But yeah, definitely, I'm definitely, Thanksgiving's my favorite holiday, so I'm a big advocate of giving it the rightful, respectful attention. Christmas music a bit before is what stores tend to do, and again, it doesn't ruin that for me. As a composer, I'm all for Christmas after Thanksgiving. That being said, eggnog, I'm year-round if possible. They have Easter eggnog from Highland. I look forward to that. But definitely late September, they had pumpkin eggnog. And me and my dad have already drank some, and it's one of those things where you go to the store, you get excited for it. It's honestly a killer combo when you see pumpkin eggnog and the Frankenberry Blueberry Count Chocula combo in stock. So very super enjoyable. Those kind of trips to the store, I've talked about in the past how those can make such a big difference in life. And we think about it as like routine. We think that our routine, we get used to it to the point that I've talked about that, Professor Conley at, the first college I went to, MCC, he talked about in philosophy, intro to philosophy, about how we can get used to routine things to the point that when we're driving 65 miles per hour, around there on the highway, we can forget that we did almost all that. And it's true. When he brought that up, I was like, whoa. Yeah, and there are many commutes I've done where I'm like, did I just drive all that? You get in that ebb and flow, which is a trade-off. The ebb and flow is if you're a safe driver, you're well concentrated, and it's like an instinct. It's aligned with your instincts. It's like learning an instrument, learning a fighting game. It's just that I've also brought up the dangers of driving, and like my mom said, we are driving mobile weapons that could easily take the lives of other people. Seriously injure people. And that's another thing about, going to the stores, how different our routes are. I love that John Coltrane song, Life is a Highway, and I love the Rascal Flatts cover. I actually think the movie Cars is pretty underrated. It's a great Pixar film. It's a great film. And I actually think it's kind of aged even more, like it's aged like a fine wine, because the Americana type of aesthetic that it celebrates is great. It's also a good call out to small town culture, I'd say shout out. It's calling out, not to forget the small towns, which is true. I mentioned these colleges I've gone to, and the three I went to, they were all sanctioned in cities that weren't in the big major cities. Now, obviously, the community colleges were in metropolitan areas around Kansas City. But, MU and UCM, they're in college towns. There is a similar aesthetic to, kind of like Radiator Springs. Obviously, Radiator Springs is a lot smaller. That's more like Morgantown in Kentucky, where my great-grandma Nyla used to live for a long time. Great person. And she actually kind of, her kind of kind spirit It definitely reminds me of, you know, when I think about that when I drive through towns like that, because she did so much for that small town. And that's kind of the fun part too about what Cars does, is it talks about, you know, the how much even like a small trip can make a difference. You know, one wrong turn turns into the right turn, where you find out where you end up. And what I love is, again, I've talked about drive safe, but there's also an importance to, you know, you erase the anonymity. I love that word so much. Anonymity. That's what put me on reading between the lines on PBS. You know, was it like, are they just pronouncing the words when the words up there? Put me on Sesame Street. Anonymity. Yeah. T. There you get the T. Anonymity. So you erase that, and you know there are people behind those cars. And I think that's what happens is there's a lot of people that get angry real easily on the road, and because they're behind a screen, possibly tinted windows, their nature is like, oh, there's not as much repercussion now. So they're almost revealing a more like anger-induced side. I'm a big advocate of consistently treating people consistently, you know, consistently being respectful. And so that includes, you know, when you drive, whether someone's rich or poor, you know, they talk about treat the janitor the same as the CEO, and I think that includes with driving. You know, that's the kind of the funny part is some of these people that curse like sailors and go ballistic in the car, they literally could be parked right behind their boss when they're getting angry at them for not going on the yellow light. I wonder how many times that's happened where someone is cursing out someone and then it turns out that it was one of their bosses or like middle managers or something. Definitely, I think an underrated comedic trope. I'm kind of surprised it didn't really happen much on The Office. Obviously, there was a little bit of like not nice driving comments in that show, but not often the whole scenario of cursing out the person in front of you and it turns out it's your boss. But that's the thing, is like you put the human element into how everyone is behind a wheel, and it starts to become a pretty beautiful thing to witness that we're all doing different things. We're all going to different places. Hopefully it's doing good in the world, but it's still fascinating nonetheless that when you hit the highway and you're going to work in the morning, you know, there's a lot of people going to their jobs. And when I would commute to UCM, you know, I'd often catch the commuters going to Kansas City. And then when I would drive back, sometimes those people were leaving Kansas City, you know, back to Warrensburg and other kind of smaller towns in central Missouri. And so that thought process of what are their stories? What are the, you know, it's just, again, you can't overthink it to where you're not paying attention on the road. But yeah, cars will drive by me and just a license plate will tell me a story. Like I've seen the rare Alaska and Hawaii license plates before, and that's when I'm like, whoa, okay, you know, an imported car, or someone's about to try to move that car over to another state and they got their license plates early. But see, there's already stories to kind of ponder, and it's fun. Part of the also fun part about going to places that you go on a usual weekly basis is you go to the gas station and you can see someone driving a nice car. My friend Jonathan Spotwood, I remember the first time me and my friend John Miney went to hang out with him to play Street Fighter 6, which wasn't that long ago. We went to Quick Trip to get some self-serving cold brew, which was brand new at the time, and in my opinion is like, along with my stepdad, the best cold brew I've ever had. My stepdad does make a good cold brew. He could make a business out of it. And anyway, Jonathan saw some of these guys roll up in a really nice car, and he starts a conversation. He's, oh, that's a nice car. That's awesome. Where'd you get it? And they were just kind of exchanging life stories. And I think that's what life is all about, is you look at the context of what are people bringing, not just to what they drive, but where they're going. And obviously, don't be a stalker. Well, where's that car going? You're doing the stakeout, in general. But it is really fun to catch your friends on the road. I've had that a few times. Pick up on cars you see because you and them are on the same commute route for work, for school. Kind of finding out that some people might not be the nicest behind you when you're just parked, or catching someone singing a heavy metal song, right? There's a lot of different things that happen while we're driving, and I've talked about Midwestern superpowers of being able to drive 7 to 8 hours and it's nothing. And in that 7 to 8 hours, there's just so many people you come across, on average when you drive on the highway. And you go to stops. There's just a lot to enjoy. There's a lot to marvel about it, and I really don't mind just turning on a playlist and listening to music, having friends with me, and kind of observing what's around me. I think that's kind of a beauty of life. And I've talked about me and my friends going to Pokemon tournaments many years ago, and I love when they bring up that they've had good times there. My dad's had good times with those, and part of those good times is that kind of Americana culture of driving far, going on stops, and seeing what other people are experiencing while you're going to your own destination. I think the journey of life is a lot of fun, especially when you're sharing with others what their unique experiences are and how that can make an impact for your own. I love Mondays.